William Regal is done with All Elite Wrestling and is nearing a WWE return, but did backstage issues within AEW lead to Regal's departure? Plus, a AEW star has officially announced that 2023 will be his last year in professional wrestling. A TNT Championship match has been announced for Dynamite on Wednesday, plus a sit-down interview with an AEW champion also announced for the show, and Jade Cargill has been cast for a major animated show. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling, and the biggest right now in AEW and WWE is the departure of William Regal from AEW, and we've got some more details really surrounding Regal's exit. His exit from the company has now been confirmed. His WWE return is in the works and is going to happen. He's going to be back in 2023, most likely in a backstage role. But what's really interesting about his departure from the company is these now new rumors and new reports suggesting that his departure, there might be more that meets the eye on this one, especially when it pertains to more backstage issues and immaturity in AEW. And Regal himself may be suggesting he made a mistake signing with All Elite Wrestling in the first place. It's a big story here, and there's definitely more than meets the eye on this one. So let's get into some of the final details on his departure from AEW first. So this first story comes from Sean Ross Sapp from Fightful Select, who is reporting that William Regal is effectively done with All Elite Wrestling and is likely headed back to WWE, according to Sean Ross Sapp. As had been reported earlier last week, Fightful Selects reported that they got word during WrestleCade weekend that William Regal's deal was coming up in December 2022, which led to him being written off of television. Another AEW source told Fightful that after the MJF that ran last week, easy for me to say, William Regal was, quote, done with AEW and was set to leave the company. Now, of course, there have been several rumors on the length of William Regal's current deal, which they can't really add anything to as of right now. However, sources in AEW are all operating on the assumption that Regal is indeed leaving, and WWE sources are operating on the assumption that he is rejoining the company. Now, Fightful don't have any details on this unusual length of the deal after he debuted back in March with All Elite Wrestling, or any previous provisions that were associated with the contract. A WWE source has said that it does not come as a surprise that William Regal is likely headed back to the company because Triple H was, quote, very unhappy that Regal was let go in the first place. NXT sources had long told Fightful that William Regal was considered a lifer with that brand specifically, something that Triple H himself had mentioned to several outlets on several occasions. Those within AEW expect him to resume a similar role with WWE, and that's the same when it comes to WWE. WWE expect him to resume an advanced role similar to the one he had previously, but again, that hasn't been confirmed. In the moments that, from when they published this story, Sean Ross Sapp was told that Regal is indeed finalizing a new deal with the company. This was also backed up by PW Insider. Late last night, Mike Johnson from PW Insider also provided an update on this story, saying, in an update on William Regal, PW Insider is told that he is finalizing a new deal with WWE and is currently expected to officially start with the company after the new year. As has been previously reported and speculated, he is returning to WWE for a backstage role with the company. Now, this is when it gets really interesting here, because myself, I'd have just assumed that he was leaving AEW and going back to WWE because, look, he's a WWE guy. He's a Triple H guy. He's very, very, very close friends. He has been close friends with Triple H for years, decades at this point. Really, really, decades at this point. He's been friends with Triple H. Triple H, when he started the process of overhauling developmental back in 2011, 2012, the first hire or the first person to be moved into Triple H's team was William Regal. So it comes as no surprise that once Triple H gained control of the company like he did this past summer, he would look to reestablish his team that was let go. And he has brought several members of his team back within the company. Road Dogg, Ryan Katz, Gabe Sapolsky. William Regal is just going to be the latest name. But there was this discussion with Regal being under contract to AEW that what if he likes it in All Elite Wrestling? Whilst he loves Triple H and whilst he loves the WWE, what if he's happy where he is? Well, according to rumors, and it's just this, rumors, maybe, just maybe, he wasn't particularly happy within the company. Now, with reports that William Regal is effectively gone from AEW and is going to be returning to WWE, there has been one positive string of comments that has come from the reporting. When Busted Open Radio's Justin LaBar wrote what he had heard about the backstage climate at AEW as it related to William Regal's leaving the company, One Star has since responded. So this is what LaBar had to say, and it's quite interesting, and it gives a bit of an insight, possibly, into the backstage environment right now, and certainly the viewpoint of a veteran, of someone that's been in positive and negative dressing rooms, William Regal, on what he thought of the current situation within the company. He said, quote, "So what I'm hearing and what I'm picking up is Regal is done with AEW and back to WWE soon. Close with Triple H, but also his wisdom and coaching was not appreciated/received the way you would think by some in the AEW locker room who feel they have six-figure multi-year deals and Regal's advice is behind the times or beneath them." Now, AEW star Brian Pillman Jr. responded to that, kind of suggesting that parts of it might be true, but parts of it may not be true. He said, quote, "This is not entirely true. There are several of us, myself included, who spent multiple hours before TV working with Regal and learning from him. Should there have been more? Maybe. But he and Danielson always had a solid audience around the ring before TV." Then LaBar responded saying, quote, "Brian, I'm glad you're speaking out because the biggest thing of what I said is some. If you or any others were picking his brain, good on you and best of luck." To which Pillman Jr. said, quote, "I know you said some, I just didn't want the narrative to be he was just standing there preaching to the air. Some days there would be 10 guys out there soaking it in, some days it would be just me and Wheeler and Lee. I didn't mind when his attention wasn't spread as thin." And now going on to have a super pleasant close to the exchange, including Pillman Jr. noting he wasn't attempting to be argumentative, rather providing context, all ended well. But certainly that does kind of speak volumes there, because I think it's important that Brian Pillman Jr. has added context to the initial report, because when you put out there his coaching and wisdom was not appreciated and received the way you would think it is, that gives off the impression that nobody at all was listening to William Regal, which is not the case. However, considering Regal's experience and know-how and previous position within the WWE, you'd think everyone within that locker room would be listening to everything he says and soaking it up like a sponge. And that's not the case. And that's not the first time we've heard that when it comes to AEW. Now, to continue, these more rumors of backstage issues do continue. And again, take these with a pinch of salt, considering who they're coming from, but certainly it's still interesting nevertheless. Former WWE superstar EC3 has now commented on the situation and seemingly added context to LaBar's comments, speaking with Sportskeeda. During the conversation, EC3 said, quote, "He's too valuable not to be in a developmental system. And I know we can say, oh, he's there mentoring people in AEW. The thing is, they are not listening." He would then contrast the difference between those who did listen and those who didn't, stating, quote, "The talent doesn't listen to the veterans for the most part. The ones that do are knocking him in the back of the head with brass knuckles and are the world champion. The other ones are doing moves all the way from Dynamite to Rampage to Dark, and nobody cares." EC3 would then go on to reiterate the value of William Regal in NXT, where he could shape future generations for WWE, and compared this to what he's been told about Regal's impression of AEW from the highest levels, saying, quote, "The word was, he said, I immediately regret this decision. There's very much a maturity issue here within management." Verbatim. It's believed, as I mentioned, that Regal's AEW contract expires this month, despite initial belief that he'd signed for 3 years when he debuted back in March. Reports that he will work for WWE in a backstage role when he's back with the company in the new year. Of course, Regal was released earlier this year by Vince McMahon's management team before joining AEW, but he was a favorite of Paul Levesque, who now runs the wrestling side of the company. So there's a lot to get into, certainly, with that story there. And I will tell you now, and again, you can't believe everything you read, you just can't. But that even more makes sense for why he'd want to return to WWE, honestly. Because not only is he a WWE guy, not only was he with that company for over 2 decades, not only would he be working side by side with one of, if not his best friend, or one of his best friends in the business, a guy he's had a personal and professional relationship with for, again, over 2 or 3 decades in this industry. He'll be going back into a role within WWE where the wisdom that he can offer, the advice he can offer, people will listen to him. And frankly, Brian Pillman Jr. can say, well, there was at least 10 of us surrounding the ring listening to him every single week before TV. How many people are on that AEW roster? Really, how many people are on that AEW roster, and what, only 10 people can surround ringside and listen to him? That is a joke, frankly. Now, obviously, I understand not the entire AEW roster gets flown out to television every single week. That's fine too. But at the same time, this isn't the first time we've heard this. We've heard it now from people close to William Regal. We've heard it from Billy Gunn, who's still with AEW. He's on the AEW roster. He's an AEW producer. He said it in multiple interviews that we try and give advice. We try and talk to the talent. We try to give advice to the talent, but they don't want to listen. We've also heard it from CM Punk himself in that infamous post all-out media scrum rant, and I understand that that wasn't professional, it wasn't right, a lot of the stuff he said, but again, he criticized Hangman Page specifically when it came to that, saying Hangman Page says he doesn't want to listen to the advice of veterans, and I understand it might be a generational thing as well, but if you've got someone of the quality and the wisdom of a William Regal who's been all around the world, had success all around the world, and frankly has come from a developmental system that's been successful in WWE. He has created stars, he has scouted stars, he has given advice and helped shape stars, and you can't be bothered to listen to someone like William Regal. There's a massive problem going on there. And I don't know how you fix it. I don't know if you're from Tony Khan's perspective, you tell everyone it's not optional, it's mandatory. Get around the ring and listen. Or maybe that's why there are the issues that there are backstage in AEW. And I know people can say, oh, it's overblown, it's only a select few incidents, and they happen in every wrestling company. They do happen in every wrestling company, but at the same time, you don't have as many incidents as you've had backstage in AEW in the past 12 months alone, when there is clearly an attitude problem there, that people don't want to listen, and they think they know best. And they might think they know best because for the first 3 years, AEW's been successful, but at the same time, the success is still continuing. But you look at certain metrics, we did a video on it yesterday, certain metrics are down. You know, when it comes to just critical response on social media, that's down. When it looks at ticket sales, that's down. When you look at the viewership, that's down. When you look at the key demographic, that's down. That audience is getting older. And maybe all of that does come from this perception, this narrative that's starting to be put out there. And whether it's factually accurate or not, we're not behind the scenes, so we don't know. But there's something going on of a group of people there, particularly in high positions, particularly in positions of power, that think they know best and think they know better than people that have been in the professional wrestling industry for 30, 40 years, and they don't want to listen. Now, and the thing is as well, look, again, I understand that it's always like this with the older generation and the newer generation. You're old, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't understand the current style, the modern philosophy. That's fine. But when you've got someone like William Regal, who more than understands the current working philosophy, he ultimately does, because he saw it in NXT. He saw how work was going. Look at some of the shows he was involved in with NXT. The NXT style was very much similar to the AEW style. You know, there's a bit more logic and philosophy in the NXT style, but it's very similar. It's the modern style, which is more spot related and less logic and psychology related. That's fine. But you can't, the fact again that you'd be turning down advice or not listening to someone like William Regal. And again, I understand that people were listening to him, but it's not enough. If it's if it's a percentage lower than 50%, there's a problem. And clearly there's a problem in that company, because it's not the first time we've heard this. When you start to hear the same things over and over and over again, if you hear it from one group of people, or you just hear it from one old timer of they don't listen, you go, oh, whatever, you're out of touch. But when you hear it from multiple people, it's a problem. It is a problem. And again, I don't think it's the primary reason for William Regal leaving, because the primary reason for William Regal leaving is because he loves WWE and he loves Triple H and he loved his old job. And he wanted his old job back. That's the primary reason for him going. But I think the primary reason for him not deciding to stay with AEW would be, there's no reason for me to stay here. And that's the difference. Because if he was really happy in AEW, if he loved what he did, if he was doing the same role that he had in WWE, in AEW, and he felt like there was a culture that he enjoyed, and he felt like he was really making a difference, and people were listening to him, it would have been a much harder decision. Now, ultimately, he probably would have made that decision to go back to WWE anyway. But at the same time, as I mentioned, it felt like there was no reason to stay, because the offer was better to go back to WWE. And that's a shame. That's a crying shame when you get people of the experience of William Regal to come in, and Regal's proved to be a massive difference to AEW television. But it's a shame, and again, it's not the first time we've heard it. A couple of other stories I do want to touch on today. Dustin Rhodes has said that 2023 will be his last year in pro wrestling. Rhodes appeared at the Blizzard Brawl tapings for Great Lakes Championship Wrestling on Sunday, where he made the announcement. The announcement will be made available exclusively on the Premier streaming network. Dustin has wrestled since 1988, spending his early years in WCW as the Natural Dustin Rhodes. He joined WWF in 1995, where he became most famous for portraying Goldust until his departure in 1999. He then had another spell with WCW. Actually, just as he broke into professional wrestling early on, he also had a brief spell in WWF. But he returned to WWE in 2002, where he remained sporadically on and off until 2019, leaving the company for All Elite Wrestling. His most recent match took place on the August 24 edition of AEW Rampage, where he was defeated by Ring of Honor World Champion at the time, Claudio Castagnoli, in an ROH World Championship match. But he has said that 2023 will be his last year in pro wrestling. Whether that's with AEW or not, I believe his contract is still till, I want to say, at some point in 2023. It might be, I mean, he came in May, around May time, April, May time of 2019. So we could certainly see him leave AEW. I wouldn't be shocked, to be honest, if he left at the end of his contract and then maybe went to have one more final match in WWE, which I'm sure Triple H would afford him. Cody Rhodes is back there, so they could tag up once again and maybe have that match at a WrestleMania that they never had before, right? I mean, they had it at Double or Nothing, but they really wanted to have it at WrestleMania, and now would be a possibility that they could have it. So that story could be told in WWE. So here's hoping that he has this fantastic run, because he still can go in the ring. There's no doubt about it, but again, it's just funny how much AEW has changed between the time that he came in and he'll probably be leaving, in that it was, you know, Rhodes, the Rhodes name was heavily involved in it. I mean, the Go position was called the Dusty position. I don't even know if that's still the case in that company anymore. It's just, things have changed, and stuff changes very quickly in pro wrestling. Speaking of Dynamite, there's a match been announced for this week's edition of the show. Two major championship matches. Of course, this is one of my problems with AEW Dynamite that I spoke about the other day, that we've always got title matches. Two major championship matches have been made official for this week's edition of Dynamite. On Rampage on Friday, AEW World Tag Team Champions The Acclaimed, alongside Daddy Ass, laid out a challenge to the second best tag team in All Elite Wrestling. Despite Gun Club and Jeff Jarrett's crew coming out, it was FTR who entered the ring and accepted the challenge from the champions. The match has now been made official for this week's episode of Dynamite. In addition to that, a TNT Championship match has been announced, pitting champion Samoa Joe against Darby Allin. Allin picked up a victory over Cole Carter on Friday's edition of Rampage. Also set for Dynamite is the Dynamite Diamond Ring Battle Royale, set to feature AEW World Championship #1 contender Ricky Starks. As I mentioned before, these title matches having really no meanings. Just, it's another turn off for me when it comes to Dynamite at the moment. The match will be fine. Samoa Joe's going to win, I would think. But I mean, it's a good match. There's no reason behind it. There isn't. The tag team one, at least there is kind of some reason. FTR not having a title match is ridiculous. So they absolutely deserve to have one. And I don't think they'll win. It'll be interesting to find out how they have them lose that match. But they won't win that match. But as far as this match, the TNT title match, it just, again, feels like a match just because it's TV. It's a TV championship match. You might as well put it on television. Speaking of Dynamite, another segment has been made official for Wednesday's show. It will feature Jamie Hayter having a sit-down interview with Tony Schiavone. She was crowned the AEW Women's World Champion back at Full Gear when she defeated Toni Storm. Of course, the following episode of Dynamite, it was announced that Thunder Rosa had relinquished the championship, so she was therefore the official champion. AEW has now announced that Hayter will speak on this week's edition of Dynamite on TBS in a sit-down interview with Tony Schiavone. Jamie was part of a backstage interview on last week's episode, but barely spoke due to Britt Baker cutting a promo on Saraya. It would feel like, isn't it, they're building up to Jamie Hayter versus Britt Baker, and Hayter, I would assume, is going to turn babyface, and Britt Baker's going to be jealous that the spotlight is on her. We're going to get Triple H Randy Orton vibes. I think that's what they're going for. So maybe Britt Baker will interrupt this interview and it will build to possibly a match at Revolution or something like that. Finally, Jade Cargill has been cast in an animated series. AEW TBS champion Jade Cargill has now revealed that she has a role on a huge animated show. Cargill took to Twitter to show gratitude, noting she had started recording for the show. She tweeted, quote, "Did my first voiceover for a huge animated show today. So excited to share in the future. God is amazing." Now, she didn't name the show or indicate when fans will be able to watch her appearance. Of course, since making her in-ring debut in March of last year, Cargill has remained undefeated in singles competition. addition, she won the TBS Championship in January, defeating Ruby Soho to win the tournament to become the inaugural title holder. She most recently defended her gold against Nyla Rose on November 19's Full Gear pay-per-view. She's currently involved in a feud with Bow Wow, who interrupted her last week on Dynamite. Where that's leading to, we don't know, and we'll have to wait and see. But there you go, guys. That's the latest AEW news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Let me know your thoughts on today's AEW news stories in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right-hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.